Pain and suffering are the most unbiased teachers that ever existed. Whether you're rich or poor, black or white, tall or short, male or female, there is no escaping the inevitability of hardship. So does it come as any surprise that difficulties come our way? The choice in life does not rely on whether the awful things are going to be presented to you. The choice comes from your perspective and how you view those moments in time. You can either take the worst of life as a setback or choose to use it as a setup for what comes next. When you're stuck in that place, it's hard to break the cycle. Trauma can become a generational curse if you let it run wild. Many years pass before you're able to break free from the darkness and thrive because of this fuel from suffering. I'm Kevin Donaldson, always here with Mike Felice, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you because that's what we do here and that's the stories that we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, please comment, ring the bell so you can get notified of all of our new content, and now you can join. And of course, follow us on all social media so you can find out what we're up to when we're up to it. This is kind of an odd recording because we're doing it at a different time, so my rhythms are a little bit off. But today we have Dr. Greg Linowski to talk about the suffering of thriving. You know, where you start this story is not where you end this story. So, Doc, thank you so much for coming in, and it's a pleasure for us to have you.
Kevin, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. Drove up straight from Kennett Square, Pennsylvania, and got in about a half hour ago, and so I'm really excited to participate with you and share my story.
Well, when we spoke on the phone, you got a really interesting story. I love where you came from, where you've been, and where you're going. So we're going to get into it. Before we do, let's throw a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody as police, and we certainly don't trust anybody as podcasters, but we do trust the guys over at Toyota Hackensack. So if you're looking for a car and you're in the New York, New Jersey area, go to toyotahackensack.com and let them find you a car. But don't forget to tell them the Suffering Podcast sent you. So, Doc, each week we take a question from our audience. This question comes from Paulie Donuts. If you were to meet yourself 30 years ago, would you get along with yourself? And I want to know why or why not. You're our guest today, Doc, so why don't you lead this one off?
I would get along with myself with the footnote that I would certainly have modified some of my behavior, and particularly as far as my relationship with alcohol and drinking to numb myself and to chill out. You know, that has been a generational curse in our family. I have to say, if you turn the clock back 30 years ago, I for sure was in my own therapy, which I did for many years. And this particular therapist helped me basically unravel my past, deal with my PTSD, and actually flourish as a doctor, and also, way more importantly, helped me become that dad that I never had.
That's what we always strive to become, better and better each year. And, you know, some therapy we do on ourselves is not the best form of therapy.
Right.
You know, some of our therapy is found at the end of a bottle or, you know, whatever illicit drug it is, or some other unhealthy coping mechanism. You know, if I were to travel back in time 30 years ago and I meet so I'm 51 now, and meet that 21-year-old Kevin, I do not think I would get along with him. I don't think I'd have anything in common with him, mm-hmm. because that young man had his whole life in front of him, and he's not going to be able to see the dangers that are coming his way, the suffering that's going to come his way. So I don't know what I would have. I don't know if I'd have anything to talk to him about. I certainly don't think our point of views would align with each other the way I sit today. And I'm not saying I'm better than my points of views are better. They just come with age and experience. You know, it's kind of like if I were to sit in front of a 21-year-old guy right now who sort of looks like me, sort of did the same things as me, I'm not sure him and I would have a very engaging conversation. There's that piece of you, if you meet yourself 30 years in the past going, maybe if I can change the trajectory of my life, I wouldn't say a damn thing to him about what to avoid, what not to avoid. Don't date this girl, go with this girl. This one's better for you. Avoid this. Don't go here, stay here. Because all those experiences that I was leading up to after the age of 21 made me into the man that I am today.
Mhm.
Without those experiences, I would never be here. I would have avoided a lot of suffering, but who knows? Suffering is inevitable. It's as inevitable as the tide. It's going to come in some form or fashion. It could have been 10 times worse. So I don't think I'd like myself. I don't think I'd have anything in common with myself. We probably fight, but that's okay.
Mhm.
That's okay. Yeah, that's an odd question. We can't turn back the clock. It's an academic question, but nevertheless, it's fun to think about. I'm a completely different person than I was now at 51 than I was at 21. So, Paulie Donuts, thank you for sending that question in. Keep sending in your questions, and we will try to get them on the air. So, Doc, you traveled all this way from the West Coast, right? I know you had many different stops in between. You brought us your book that you wrote, Dare to Thrive, and you got a hell of a story. I'm trying to figure out, and I'm trying to remember how we got connected.
We got connected from the Flow Agency, FLO, in Los Angeles.
Okay.
Yvonne Brown is the principal.
Are you ready to enhance your skills and provide the best care to those who need it the most? I'm Kevin Donaldson.
I'm Sherry Alsop. Our trauma-informed training is here to help, and we've been traveling across the country delivering this essential need to departments and organizations of every size, shape, and makeup.
We come to you with on-site training so you don't have to worry about travel or scheduling conflicts.
This isn't just a class, it's an interactive experience. You'll learn directly from subject matter experts who teach from a victim's point of view, putting you in the shoes of those who have experienced trauma.
This approach allows you to understand trauma on a deeper level and to better serve the individuals you work with.
We'll guide you through new interview techniques that prioritize a victim-centered approach, ensuring safety and empathy in every conversation.
And for those of you in law enforcement or other fields, our training includes post-credits, giving you the extra added value and recognition for your commitment to professional growth.
We offer references upon request to show just how effective our training can be.
Don't miss the opportunity to improve your understanding of trauma and make a real difference in the lives of those you serve. Get in touch with us today by going to sherryalsop.com and let us bring trauma-informed training to your organization.
Together, we can make a lasting impact.
When I got the potential invitation for your podcast, I got on the phone and, I reached out to you away.
That's where the difference comes in, right? I get reached out to a lot by PR agencies. I get it constantly.
Uh-huh.
And the problem with most of them, there's a couple problems. Number one, they have no idea what your show's about. Okay. They have no clue because they didn't do the research. I don't know where they're getting this information from. Second, when you email them back, it takes them 3 weeks to get back to you.
Mm-hmm.
And third, somebody like me, I don't want to speak to a PR person. I want to speak to you.
Right.
All right. I want to know what's out of your mouth. And sometimes PR people, it's happened more times than I can count. They get in the way,
Mm-hmm.
and they hamstring their clients into possibly getting on a show, whether it's my show or another show. You did it right. Hey, Greg, let's have a conversation. Let's talk.
And you called me within 15 minutes of me reaching out to you. And I know you were at your son's football game. And I just said, I like this guy. And, I could just tell. I mean, my gut feeling, growing up in New York, New York, New Jersey, we're East Coasters.
Different mentality out here. Now you're on the other coast. And I've spent a fair amount of time this year in California. And they're not better. They're not worse. They're just different. Different mentality.
Yeah, I can tell you that one saying that I have heard is New Yorkers or East Coasters will stab you in the front, and West Coast will stab you in the back.
I think that's fair to say.
I think it is.
Because if I don't like you, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you I
Thank
don't like you.
But not on the show.
Not on the show, off camera. No. It's if I don't like somebody sitting in front of me, I'm going to tell. I'm going to say they'll know within 5 minutes whether I like them or not. I'm just not going to talk to them. That's how I do it. But being out there, a lot of smiles to your face, and then they don't like you, and it's hard to judge. So somebody coming from the East Coast, that is. That's a whole different mindset. That's a whole different way to read body language.
It's a different culture, in my opinion. And better or worse, it's just different.
It's just different. It's like the pizza out there. It's just different.
Oh, yeah.
It's very, very different. So, Doctor, why don't you give our audience a little bit about yourself? Where'd you grow up? How'd you grow up? Give us a little background.
I was born in 1954 in Yonkers, New York, just a little bit north of the Bronx. And I was the second of 4 children, grew up in a conservative Catholic family, blue collar. My dad actually was a machinist. He worked underneath Grand Central Terminal for the railroad for the majority of his career.
In those bunkers that...
Yes.
So I oddly enough, this one of the pieces of worthless information I have, there's these big giant generators that are way down underneath Grand Central.
Way below.
And the Germans were trying to get spies in there with bags of sand because they knew if they threw sand in the generators, it would disable the generator because of the turbine spinning. They could never get down there, could never find them. They were secret for so long. Now they're out of service. They don't work anymore. So they bring people down there. But I watched this whole thing. This was a major target during World War II.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah, it's don't ask me don't ask me my wife's birthday, but I can remember that.
When I was young, my dad would take us down there, and it was, I'll tell you, Kevin, it was a whole nother world.
Yeah.
And my dad was a master craftsman, machinist. He and I would like to talk just a little bit about Dad because he figures into my story, and there's a few pivotal events that happened which led me to want to write my story. And anyway, as it turns out, Dad was a World War II veteran. He was on an LST, saw a lot of wartime action. He was there at D-Day.
Oh, wow.
And
we actually had a D-Day vet in here.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's still alive. On September 4th, he'll be 102.
God
and
bless
Bob
him.
Gibson, he'll call me up occasionally. I haven't heard from him in a little bit, a couple months, but he'll call me up occasionally and he'll say, "How am I doing?" I said, "Bob, you're 102. I should be calling you and asking you how you're doing."
I'll tell you, they were the greatest generation.
They were.
Now, my dad honorably discharged from the Navy after the end of the war, and essentially, I'm sure, had a terrible case of post-traumatic stress disorder. Back then, it was known as shell shock syndrome,
Battle fatigue,
combat battle fatigue, untreated. And he went about his business, got married, and decided to raise a family. That's when the demon of alcohol entered into our family. And well, it was present before that time.
It gets ramped up after those traumatic incidents. And, I had an uncle, prisoner of war, World War II, for 27 months, horrible alcoholic, fought all the time, never married, went and re-enlisted for Korea. But everybody sees these people as drunks, right? Mm-hmm. And by the time you become alcohol dependent, nobody ever looks at the steps, the many small little steps in order how you got there. And it's crystal clear, right? Your father. Okay, so your father's drinking. Well, no shit he's drinking. He just saw some awful stuff. He was a kid.
Right.
you know, and he's in the theater of war, and people are trying to kill him. Bombs are going off everywhere. Well, you bring that stuff home.
Bring it home. He did. As I turned into a teenager, the drinking episodes worsened, and Dad would typically go down the cellar, would have little flasks of whatever alcohol he could get his hands on, vodka, whiskey, scotch, whatever. One particular Saturday, and Kevin, I don't remember exactly how old I was, probably 13 or 14. Mom and Dad had been arguing on that Saturday morning, and they were really going at it. And I knew something was up. Well, Dad was really intoxicated by the late morning. He pulled out a loaded .45 caliber semi-automatic pistol, shot it into the floor of the kitchen. I mean, and that, I mean, the sound of a gun going off in a house, as I'm sure you know, is deafening. We were filled with terror. As it turns out, Dad announced, "I'm going upstairs to kill myself."
Oof.
And what a showstopper. And I had to start off my book with that story, because that's what my mentor advised me to do. But anyway, I'm going to bring God into this, because I am 100% certain that God was in the details as Dad stumbled up the stairs to go up to their bedroom. My mother, one of my brothers, my sister, and myself charged at Dad and subdued him, and I was able to wrestle the loaded .45 caliber out of his right hand.
How old were you?
Probably 13 or 14. And Kevin, that solidified my role as, quote, the healthy one in my family, studious one, the one who excelled, the one who my parents had a lot of hopes and dreams on, which was a blessing and also a curse.
As a 13-year-old child, that is overly traumatic. This man who, listen, this man, most kids will look at their parents as godlike, right? They are the heroes. They are Iron Man, Superman, Batman, all rolled into one. And then you see their humanity, when their humanity comes out, when they fall, when they're having a moment, and when they trip. And you have to bear witness to that. You had to wrestle a firearm away from this person. And now all of a sudden your views change. Your brain gets rewired. You're like, how's this guy who's my hero doing this? And it can screw with a kid's head. So that same battle fatigue that your father had is now been transferred to you.
All of us. And this part of the story is rather amazing. I would say probably when I was around 15 or so, I really thought I wanted to become a doctor. And the type of doctor that I wanted to become was a psychiatrist. I just didn't know the why behind that.
It's evident now.
Well, and I found out way later in the game. But as it turns out, I excelled in school. I went to college.
And so at 15, it's 1969?
Something like that, yeah.
Ooh, you're a high time hippie right there.
Oh, it was a wild time.
Yeah.
It was a wild time, and I can I can testify that some of the experiences were. I just thank God.
I've seen hair. I know. If you talk about the atmosphere in 1969, I'm a consummate reader and I'm a consummate student. So the atmosphere, while yes, the hippies love freedom and all that stuff, you also had some times of real darkness. You had the Manson families. They took Sharon Tate. Sharon Tate. They took it in 1969 on Cielo Drive. And the government's experimenting on its people with MK Ultra, and there's all sorts of mind control things, especially in the left coast or the West Coast. You know, you have places in the Haight-Ashbury, which were known CIA places. You have brothels in San Francisco that they're watching through a one-way mirror as they're dosing the Johns with LSD to see what happens. So while all this peace and love and stuff is going on, you also have that grim finish below the glossy veneer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got to be a tough time because for a 15-year-old to navigate in there, but somehow you made it work.
Yeah, and by the grace of God, and I am convinced that God was with me even when I wasn't walking with him.
Yeah, God's always there. He knows what the path is you have to walk with. I'm 100% positive on that. So you get out, you excel in college. When was it the decision to actually become a medical doctor?
From the teenage years, and I successfully gained entrance into medical school. I wasn't first round draft pick, but I did get in the summer before classes started, and I was on top of the world. I thought, this is it.
You know, you never ask a doctor, hey, did you get A's in college or B's in college or C's in college? Because C's and D's to get degrees, you know? You never ask that question to a doctor. Maybe we should, but we don't.
Yeah, I can tell you that in my first year of college, I did wind up with a C in general chemistry, and that almost solidified non-acceptance or unacceptance.
Really,
to
was that
medical school.
strict?
But I did a total turnaround, and I have to give a lot of credit to a mentor that I encountered. I went to Manhattan College, and there was this professor who was very old school, very tough, but legend had it, if you got an A in his anatomy class, you were essentially a good candidate to go and become a doctor. And so I studied really hard, and he took me under his wing.
Yeah, they identify. There's those group of teachers out there that will identify potential, and potential is not always talent. Potential is the ability to work hard even when something difficult is thrown their way.
Yeah, I can't underscore the importance of young folks, particularly male and female, having a mentor who's been there, done that, and who you can develop trust with.
I love the old school guys.
I do too.
I do. You want to know why? Because there's no bullshit.
No.
It's like, stop.
No, they've been there,
Yeah.
done that. Yeah. No, essentially.
And unfortunately, the old school people in the realm of what I know of the collegiate level,
Mhm.
They're going away, right?
Oh,
They're going away. It's
without
like,
a doubt.
you're okay. You gave it 40%. That's enough. And that I'm of the belief that not everybody deserves to go to college.
Right.
Not everybody deserves a $100,000 a year paying job. You got to work for those things. And I believe in a meritocracy. I believe in you work hard, you do well, you get. That's it. That's it. And that's the old school mentality. You know, these guys in World War II, like your father, do you think that any of them came back from war and said, fought for my country, I deserve a real high paying job, cushy job, don't really have to work that hard? No. They put their guns down and went right to work.
Yeah. And, sadly, I think we both can agree that there really is a entitlement philosophy that exists, which I look at and I'm like, you haven't been through enough. You haven't lived through enough. Haven't been seasoned enough.
Yeah, you haven't been punched in the face enough. That's the problem.
Exactly.
Yeah, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face, and that's what entitlement does. Entitlement doesn't prepare you to get punched in the face, as life will inevitably do. I don't know anybody who's made it through life without getting punched a few times.
I'll tell you, at this station of life, I'm a retired physician. I became a diagnostic radiologist. My wife actually is a psychiatrist, and her job / ministry was with the veterans for 30 years. Amazing. So even through some of her experiences, I have tremendous respect for those who have served in the military, in police, firefighters, first responders. I mean, you guys in many ways are my heroes.
When we're doing our jobs. And the problem is again, like your father, untreated post-traumatic stress, which inevitably most cops have, many vets have.
Mm-hmm.
And that untreated, undiagnosed post-traumatic stress leads to a very difficult life, right? So you become an MD, you work your butt off, you get through that stuff. What field did you go into?
Well, I was hell-bent on becoming a psychiatrist until the third year of medical school, when we had our clinical clerkships. I was assigned to a locked ward in mid New York State. And I was really excited because I said, this is really what I want to do. And of course, unknowingly, I really wanted to heal my family and heal myself.
Now, your father's still alive at this time.
My father's still alive. Turns out a patient on the locked ward successfully committed suicide by jumping head first from a top of a partition.
Oof.
And when I came into the hospital on that Monday, I found that out. And Kevin, sure as I'm sitting here, a switch went off, and I said, "There is no way I'm cut out to do this."
I said the same thing about teaching high school. I was driven to teach high school. I was all in teaching high school. I get my graduate degrees and I go teach high school. And about 3-4 months in, I remember looking at myself in the mirror going, there is no way I'm doing this for 35 years. I can't. And it wasn't the kids, it was the other teachers. Because the teachers I were around were not the right teachers. But it's hard, right? So you've worked 3 years of medical school to become a psychiatrist. And now you're like, oh, crap. What do I do now?
Yeah, like I felt like a misfit.
Yeah.
And I don't wish to sound snobbish, but I rotated through medicine, pediatrics, surgery, OBGYN. And while I liked facets of them, it's like I couldn't see myself doing them. Although I loved delivering babies. That was a tremendous thrill.
Sometimes it can get a little gross.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure you've.
I was there with both. I have seen babies delivered. I have never delivered one personally, but I've been there with both my kids, but also as a police officer. And some stuff comes out, and you're like, oh, that's gross.
Yeah,
especially if you don't have kids and you see that for the first time. You're like, oh gosh.
Yeah, I mean it's and so. Well, one day we had our whole medical school class had a couple of lectures from a very dynamic radiologist who showed us x-rays and showed us some of the things that radiologists do. And I'm like, I put it together. I loved anatomy. I was one of these weirdos who loved pathology, and
you find your niche.
And I was like, this is for me.
Yeah.
And so as it turns out, it was a very good match, because I think one of the sidebar benefits from my upbringing is I have the ability to almost laser focus when I really put my mind to it. And some of the radiology cases demand and deserve almost a hyper concentration. And as it turns out, I had a knack for it, and I was one of the best.
Teaching, while for me, you spent 3 years working towards being a psychiatrist, and that stuff that you learned there, while I'm sure when you were younger and you get into radiology or you work through all these different fields,
Mm-hmm.
and like, well, I just wasted 3 years of my life. You didn't. You didn't. And I worked for all these degrees to become a teacher, and I thought for a short time, well, I wasted that time. I wasted all that money. You didn't. So when I became a cop, I have degrees in English.
Mm-hmm.
So when I became a cop, my degrees in English, I wrote really good reports.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote very, very good, concise, to the point reports.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't wasted. And then the same thing happened when I left being a police officer. Well, I wasted that time in my life. Well, it didn't. It brought me here. It brought me in front of you. It brought me, and I was able to use my voice, and it was just a direction I never saw going.
Mm-hmm.
So you being able to use all that stuff that you learned along the way and see all this really disgusting but cool stuff,
Mm-hmm.
Serving you well in radiology because your ability to stay laser focused, and you found your niche, you found your spot. It had to feel good.
Yeah, I mean, it did. And I have to say, one of the things that I do miss from clinical practice is it's almost like going up to the plate, getting the pitch, and hitting a home run. But for me, it's like, well, does the patient have appendicitis or not? Or is there cancer, and where is it? So in some ways, it's become recently clear to me that in some ways I'm almost like a first responder, but in a image-oriented fashion, because I would be the first doctor to see some terrible things, like from the ER, from inpatients, even from outpatients.
What year are we talking about when you finally got your degree, you became an official MD?
1980.
All right, so 1980, MRIs were not around yet, or maybe they were, but they were in their infancy. Yeah.
Infancy.
They were big, giant iron lung looking machines. Because I remember actually when I was in college in the early 90s, they sent me to one of the first MRIs that was in my area. 4 doctors purchased an MRI thing. They all retired within a year because they found out MRIs were so valuable.
Yeah.
But, there was all these different rules and stuff. I'm like, what do you mean you can see damage in soft tissue through an MRI? Like, what? It was crazy. It was like voodoo.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost, my career spanned from, essentially from 81 when I began my residency in Southern California to 1984. This was when MRI was just beginning. CT scanning, CAT scanning was, it was around for a bit, but there was so much progress being made, as well as in the field of ultrasound and nuclear medicine.
It was no longer slice and dice and then poke and hope. You can actually see.
Right.
I don't have to cut your arm open to see if your bicep is torn.
Right. And so the other physicians became really reliant on radiology and pathology in order to make the correct diagnosis and be able to treat the patient well. Much as I loved radiology, I actually married my medical school sweetheart, Lynn, and we have had 42 years of blissful combat.
That's a good way to put marriage.
Yeah.
You have your moments, and you have your other moments as well.
I mean, we've lived through, I think, much of what a couple can live through. I would like to segue into the crowning achievement of my life, which I'm here to tell you, and I'm sure you can resonate with this, is being privileged to be a father.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's
Everything else pales in comparison.
I mean, look, I have all sorts of degrees, certificates, and what's going to happen to them when I pass on? It's going to be...
You're going to be put in a book, Put away on a shelf,
maybe
to be discovered years later.
Or maybe just tossed in a dumpster. And that's not the important thing. For me, it's like I was very blessed to be able to have the children that God let my wife and I have in the world. I mean, we're their parents. I mean, God, I mean, we're all children of God for sure. So I, even though, it's enticing to believe you own your children.
No, they're loaned to us.
They're on loan. And as one gets older, it's really about letting go.
One of the saddest stories, I'm going to tell you a quick sad story. So we go to a house, sudden death. Guy's been dead for a few days. Nobody there to check on him. Nobody, we just looked at the mail. That's how we found out that he was passed. I can still see the house. And you walk into the house and it's a mess. He was a hoarder. It was just a mess, right? Dirt everywhere. So there he is. And I'm standing there waiting for the ME's office to show up. It's obviously he's dead. And I just look over in a box. There's a box, little file cabinet box, right? And on top of the box, it's a degree, Harvard Law. So he was a Harvard Law lawyer. And he was a judge, from what I understand. He was a superior court judge. And here he is at the end of his life. That degree is sitting in a box, no more important than a bunch of papers in a garbage can.
Right.
And here he is laying on the floor for days, and nobody checked on him. So where did the Harvard Law degree get you? Right?
Yeah. I mean, degrees are fine, and but it's the important question is, for me, is what am I going to leave
Legacy
behind for the next generation? And I am working on learning to love more unconditionally. I mean, I know it's a tall order because I haven't arrived there yet.
The key to thriving is loving unconditionally, but it's also giving grace and forgiveness, especially to those people who've done you wrong, right? Because that all works into unconditional love. So what happened between you and your father? I want to go back for 1 second. What happened between you and your father? What was his reaction to you finally becoming an MD?
Sadly, he was pretty underwhelmed. I do think my dad had an element of jealousy about me. My mother, I think I was the favored child, which it just in many ways I was, and that had good points, and it also had not so good points.
I'm sure your brothers and sisters made you aware of that at every chance they got.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I would, as children, of course, I would wrestle with both of my brothers, and we would roughhouse and, do all sorts of stuff. But, I did draw closer with my dad through a particular hobby that he had, which was fishing. And Kevin, I can look back. I have so many wonderful memories of being with Dad. And it's not that we talked a lot, but we spent that time and space together.
Yeah, that clock you can't turn that clock back. That clock's ticking forward every second of every single day.
Yeah. And so, but I had to work on a lot of forgiveness because, it's easy to dismiss my parents as having been lousy parents, which they weren't. And I do have to say, my mom was the oldest of 9 children.
Oof, your grandparents got to get a new hobby.
Yeah, lived in a row house in central Yonkers. square footage under 1,100 square feet.
Wow.
When she was a little girl, the only bathroom was outside. And so they both had a lot of hard knocks along the way. But I have to tell you, Kevin, I've thought about this, and knowing what I know about both of their backgrounds, which took me years to unravel and deal with, could I have done a better job if I lived during their time frame and experienced what they went through? I'm not sure.
You know, that's one of the things where you start to build empathy with somebody if you put yourself in their shoes and their particular set of circumstances. But I will tell you this. They, as bad as, or as many mistakes as they may have made, they produce a doctor, a very successful doctor. How did you go out to the West Coast?
It has to do with my wife, Lynn, who, as it turns out, the Navy had put her through medical school on a scholarship, and she wound up going from New York to San Diego to do her internship at the Naval Hospital.
It's not a bad place to live.
Not a bad place to live. And as it turns out, I discovered that the really dynamic professor who gave us the lectures, who I kind of idolized back at our medical school in New York, he was transferring to take over a radiology residency program in Southern California. So I asked him if he wanted to have me as a resident. And of course, I had to meet the qualifications, and, you know, they have a review committee. Anyways, turns out I was accepted. And so Lynn had her fill of me after a few years of our medical school romance, and she said, I need a break. And so I moved out to California with the notion, I'm going to get a different view. See what life is like on the West Coast, and maybe if we got back together, great. And if we didn't, fine. Well, it turns out we did, and we got married in 1983.
You're out in San Diego, and I will say this about San Diego. That has a crop of the most beautiful women that I have ever laid eyes on. Like the women that are just, they look like they're genetically engineered in order to lure men in, like the sirens from Odysseus, from the Odyssey. That's what it's like out there. And you're out there as a single, well, somewhat pseudo-single man. And the fact that you were able to reconnect with your wife speaks to the affection that you had for one another.
Absolutely. And make no mistake about it, we each had other relationships before discovering that God had us destined to be partners. And
you're working for this doctor who you admire. You know, you're living out in the most beautiful place in the planet. All you got to do is drive up to La Jolla and see how exactly beautiful that place is. So life's pretty good. Mm-hmm. Life's going pretty well. Is there any hiccups along the way?
After we married, we moved up to San Francisco. After I finished my residency, Kevin, I did not feel ready for prime time yet. I really wanted additional training, what they call fellowship training in CT and ultrasound and MRI. So I wound up going to a powerhouse university in San Francisco, and did 3 additional years of training. And Lynn was actually at the Oakland Naval Hospital when it was still open.
Yeah, I was just in Oakland. It's not a nice place.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. But you're working and you're thriving in your professional career. And one of the things that I learned about people in general is there's a couple different facets of your life. And you could be doing real well professionally, you could be doing real well on in whatever particular field is. There's something that's going on in the background that is falling apart. Like and it never seems to happen. Nothing ever seems to click all together all at once. It's either your professional life is blowing up or your marital life is blowing down.
Right.
You know, and that's so something's going on in the background. You had mentioned something. Did the generational curse with alcohol, did it hit you?
Oh yeah, it did, and it hit both of us. And I'm very pleased to say that for the past few years, I've been predominantly alcohol free. That has been very much a game changer in my day-to-day life and just how I feel.
Well, people think that if you're drinking too much, you're an alcoholic. Sometimes you just need to step back. You need to tone it down a little bit. You need to recognize that this could get out of control.
Mhm.
And if you can catch it before it hits there, it's fantastic. Me, myself, I've ruined that. Like, I know I can never have another drink again
Right.
because I'm crazy. There's
Right.
something wrong with me when it comes to that stuff. I just can't do it, and I choose not to. And I've been sober for 12 years in, what's today, the 19th? In 7 days, I'll be sober for 12 full years. Greatest decision I ever made. Now, when I'm out, somebody's having a couple drinks, socializing and things like that, and I'm like, I look at them like, yeah, I kind of ruined that for myself, but I know it's on me.
Congratulations on that, because that is a really big deal. So, as it turns out, hiccups really began when we moved to Fresno, when I landed a job with a private practice. And that was in '87 when we moved to Fresno. Well, I began work in a very busy community hospital. Kevin, it was almost like jumping on a moving freight train. The pace and pitch of work expectations exceeded what I could do. And we were having some marital issues. I decided to go into my own therapy, and that was a very, very good decision, because that's when I started really facing who I am and growing and actually going through the pain of grieving the loss of a lot of things, and also grieving, some of the events that happened along the way. Well, in 1990, we were blessed with our first child, a lovely girl who I'm very proud to say has been happily married and has four children of her own. So we have 4 little grandchildren, which are it's the crowning. It's the cherry on top of the cake.
I can't wait to be a grandfather. I had the greatest grandfather in the world. Okay, bar none, and I'll argue that point to anybody in the world. But being a grandfather or grandmother, you get to enjoy the good stuff of children, because having children, as you know all too well, is not all sunshine and rainbows. There's
Right.
some hardship in there. But a grandparent, when things get difficult, here, I'm going to go home.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
and it's really enjoyable to not have to step in and discipline, but to sit back and watch. And I got to tell you, they are doing such an amazing job. I actually have told them that I wish you could have been my parents. But of course, I mean, I know that that's not true. Well, so our baby girl was 3 years old when we had our second child, and his name was and is David. Um, I devote 2 chapters in my book to the story of life with David. And Kevin, even the time of this podcast does not permit us to go into extensive detail about his life, but I can tell you that we found out a few months into his life that David was very medically fragile and wound up having very severe developmental delay and terrible seizure disorder. Never really diagnosed. The etiology or the cause or the syndrome, they never could figure out what was what the situation was with him. But they did know that the white matter in his brain wasn't organized quite correctly, and so it would manifest as abnormal electrical activity in his brain, which was seizure activity. So as it turns out, David was functionally a quadriplegic and could never walk, never talk, was able to eat. Sometimes in his life, we had to resort to having a tube in his stomach called the gastrostomy tube. We were able to keep David home for the vast majority of his life, and he lived almost 10 years.
You broke the cardinal rule of being a parent, the most heartbreaking rule of being a parent. You're not supposed to outlive your children.
Right.
And unfortunately, that's not a medal or a degree we all strive for, but it happens far too often. And when it happens, I've seen the devastating effects.
Oh, without a doubt. And I have to tell you, I've told both of our living children, you cannot die before me. I mean, I'm like, that's just not going to happen.
What I tell my children is, if you die before me, I'll kill you.
Exactly.
That's exactly what I tell them.
Yeah, well, my daughter, and I, at age 71, okay, I realize unless something miraculous happens, I'm in my last quarter.
You're in the back nine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the best quarter. And I am committed to live each day.
Well, is that why you wrote Dare to Thrive?
Partly as a tribute to David. And I will tell you, okay, by virtue of having had him, he changed our lives dramatically. I mean, he was almost like an angel sent by God for such a time as this. But if you really got to know us, and particularly our daughter and our youngest child, Sammy, the level of empathy and compassion and love, David, as a byproduct, we all got an extra dose of that. But of course, with a lot of pain along the way.
Those children that come into people's lives that leave early are somewhat, they're angels to teach you a lesson. It's a lesson in hard pain. But I heard this quote, and I love this quote. It's, when we're born, we're set out on this earth for a mission. Our mission is to take this life, long or short, and learn how to live.
Mm-hmm.
And some people are better at it. Some people take a little bit longer. The children who are taken early, they just accomplished the mission real soon.
Mm-hmm.
And it's time to move on. So maybe that's where David was here to give you a gift of compassion, of love, of empathy, but he was also here to learn how to live, and apparently he accomplished the goal.
Absolutely. And I really look forward to spending eternity with him.
So explain to me, you go through therapy, you're trying to find out more about yourself. You went through this horrible loss of your child, but professionally, it sounds like you're doing really well. When was it time to actually let this stuff out in your book?
Kevin, I started journaling when David was alive. Now, David lived from 1993 until 2002. And I can remember, in fact, I have my records of notes that I would take, particularly like when we were going through a horrific time, like he was in the hospital with prolonged and continuous seizure activity, and he was in the neonatal in the pediatric intensive care unit. I mean, we had a number of near-death experiences with David, which I began to chronicle and I began to write about. And even when I would travel, like say from Fresno up to San Francisco to go to a radiology conference, I would even cut audio tapes on the cassette tapes.
You're gonna. There's a lot of my audience that has no idea what a cassette tape is.
Yeah, it's ancient.
Yeah,
it's very. But
did they make them on papyrus?
I retired out at age 60, which is about almost 12 years ago. I'm 71, going to be 72 in January, and I spent the first few years of my retirement doing various things. In fact, I even was an assistant to the chaplain at the hospital that I worked at, which was a very unique experience, because I would see some of my hospital-based physician colleagues, after I retired out, and they'd say, "What are you doing up here?" And I said, "Well, I'm doing something a little different, helping out the chaplain a little bit."
You're taking care of people's souls rather than taking care of their radiology needs.
Yeah, but it was also a real growing time for me, and I participated on a couple of different boards. In fact, I would like to mention one particular faith-based organization that really came alongside us when David was alive, and that's an organization called Johnny and Friends, and it's Joni and Friends, and it's a Christian disability ministry that really helps families who have a member with a disability or some type of issue, and they do family retreats and a little bit of respite care. They also deliver wheelchairs to various places in the world. And I felt led, and to honor my son David, I participated on their local board in Fresno, to give back.
Any nonprofit in the world always is born from some form of suffering.
Absolutely.
You have to recognize where people are in pain and then do your part, whatever part that may be, in order to try to give some relief from that pain. But I have yet to come face to face with a nonprofit that wasn't born out of some sort of hardship.
Yeah, and God bless them. I mean, they're really doing God's work. And so anyway, so going forward, probably about, Kevin, I want to say maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I had this notion that I wanted to become a life coach for physicians. And so I took a 6-month training program with Physicians Coaching Institute out of Bellevue, Washington. And I thought, I've navigated retirement pretty well. And I would like to be able to help some of my medical colleagues, because, Kevin, going from being a doctor, I mean, we're held on a very high level, and becoming a civilian it's definitely different. But
you can't deny your experience and what brought you to the show.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But then what is the show after? And I've discovered that life has so many wonderful things. If you just look around you, I mean, there is no shortage of pain. I mean, there's so many volunteer opportunities and things of that nature. But so anyway, so I finished that a course, and certain family events happened. Our moms were basically getting ill and traveling back and forth from West Coast to East Coast. So I put that on the shelf. And then a few years ago, it became like, what else is there? What do I want to do? And it just became very much a burning desire inside me to write my story. And I believe my hope is that God gets the honor and glory from a few nuggets of wisdom that I believe I've learned along the way.
So it's funny that you give the praise and thanks to God, even though you went through something that would turn most people away from their faith. Losing a child has a way to do that because there's just an unbearable pain and suffering. So I commend you for that. Now,
Thank you.
We are coming to the end of this thing. Where can our audience find you, and where can we find Dare to Thrive?
Okay, well, you can find my Instagram is Greg, is it the Greg Linowski _M.D. And I'm also on Facebook. I don't remember my exact thing, but that doesn't matter. I'm I can also, if you'd like, I can give my email out.
Of course, if you'd like
which
to.
is lowercase linkowskigreg@gmail.com. And I hope that if there is somebody out there who benefits from my story, that would make my day.
You know what I tell people, especially when it comes in terms of my book? I say, if you like it, please let me know. If you don't like it, you can keep that shit to yourself. But I'm sure, you know what? I got a plane ride coming up, and I can't wait to dive into this stuff because I always like reading books on planes. It's only my only quiet time.
Yes, sir.
Where I can actually shut down my electronics and I can focus back on reading. So if you'd like to reach out, please email, find another way. But can we get this on Amazon? Is this?
Absolutely. Amazon, Barnes & Noble.
Oh, you have an Ingram Sparks. Ingram Sparks account. That's the only way you can get in Barnes & Noble.
Oh, is that right? Yeah. If you do resonate with what's in my book, thank you in advance for a review on Amazon.
They're more important than people think. So, as I said, Doc, we're coming to the end of this thing here.
Yes, sir.
And in order to thrive, you must first walk through the fire. You must encounter many different setbacks, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. And some of those lessons that you learn are very, very difficult to handle. But they got to teach you something, because if you went through all that stuff and you didn't learn anything, what a wasted opportunity that would be. So what do you think that the suffering of this thriving that you're experiencing now has taught you?
Pain in life is inevitable. It does not have to define us. And I believe through perseverance, through forgiveness, and having a faith walk, that can be turned. We can transform our wounds into wisdom. And thank God that we're able to do that. And listen, it could go, one could go the other way and be totally pissed off at God and say, the whole world is against me, etc. I don't believe that in a second. I believe we're here to learn, to love, and to then graduate.
And that graduation is our reward.
Yes, sir.
So, Dr. Greg Linowski, thank you so much for sitting down with me and going over this stuff. Don't forget to check out Doc's book, Dare to Thrive. You can find it on Amazon, and check him out on Instagram. Make sure you give us a follow. So anyway, that's going to do it. And I really do appreciate you coming in today. I appreciate you got a great story, and I love what you got to say. And I love your ability to take what you learned throughout your life and pass it on.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
And that's going to do it for this episode of the Suffering Podcast, The Suffering of Thriving with Dr. Greg Linowski. And let's think about all the stuff that we learned. When no coping mechanism exists, bad choices will definitely fill the void. Entitlement will not equal success. Unconditional love must have unconditional forgiveness. But most importantly, accomplish the mission and learn how to live, just like David. And that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to go to popl.com, put in the code TSP20 for a 20% discount on your digital business card. Follow us on all social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, OnlyFans. Follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson, and of course, follow the Suffering Podcast. We'll see you on the next episode.